I'm from Tremont Island, a quiet little place where I lived with my parents and sister. Things were good, except my sister was suffering from a terrible condition. We couldn't treat her on Tremont, so she was forced to travel to another island, all on her own. Back then, skyfaring wasn't nearly the safe bet that it is today, so I wasn't sure if she'd even make it there, let alone receive treatment. I loved my sister more than anything, so waving bye to her as she took off toward an unknown future was the hardest thing I'd ever done. I hoped beyond all hope. I hoped till it hurt, that her cure would be swift, and she'd sail back to me with each setting sun. But the days, they grew into months. Sometime after she left, a brutal pandemic spread across Tremont, crippling our population in a matter of days. I was shocked, watching the good people I'd known all my life pass away. But I was horrified when it claimed my parents. And when it came for me, I knew death was waiting at the front door. What can I do? I thought, lungs heavy and weighing me to my bed. What could I do but turn to the skies and pray? Please, if you're listening, I want to hear my family. I want to hear their voices again. My pleas were answered, but not by salvation. No, it was Celeste, the primal beast of death, who descended from the heavens. She stole death from the suffering islanders, preventing them from slipping into the afterlife. They became zombies, sentient and rotting. Unlike the others, my corporeal form faded away, leaving my spirit to haunt the land. This, at least, gave me a faint hope. If I was given an unlife, then perhaps my mother and father would be given the same gift. But the months, they grew into years. And it became clear that though Celeste held dominion over death, life was a more complicated matter. It was my wish that had brought unlife to Tremont. I was to blame for turning my hometown into a living cemetery. If the villagers knew what I had done, well, that's why I chose to haunt the manor on the outskirts of town. Alone in those halls, with no one to talk to, I counted the days until I lost track of time. Solitude was better than guilt. Isolation was better than hearing my name used as a curse. But with time, the silence ate away at my name, until even I forgot who I was. It's true that there weren't people around the manor, but I did discover a few ghost animals floating about. They took a liking to me, probably because of our shared ghosthood, and I gave them cute names to show my affection. Beppo, Gigi, Fuji, and Nicola. Before I knew it, my lonesome days became a little less gray, if not less repetitive. I watched so many tomorrows and yesterdays pass me by. I felt as stale and constant as the mists that covered the island. That all changed when the crew came to my manor. They were a cheerful, lively group, but also straightforward and intimidating. It had been so long since I needed to interact with other people. I knew that if I made contact, I would have to acknowledge the real depth of my loneliness. So I ran, and they gave chase. So I ran again, and they followed once more. No matter where I fled, they found me, undeterred by my spectral form or my ghostly pets. Finally, I decided to ask them about their situation. Thanks to the mists, they explained, their airship was grounded on Tremont. Like me, like the other islanders. we were all prisoners of Celeste. So long as she still had a pact with the island, there would be no refuge from her fog. But, by the same token, her powers preserved the unlives of Tremont's people, myself included. If Celeste was brought down, we would fade with her. It troubled me, but I knew it was a necessary course of action. I had only one thing to accomplish before confronting the primal beast of death. I needed to come clean to the Islanders. It was time to make amends. Had it not been for the arrival of the captain and the crew, I would never have found the strength to make that decision. I marched straight to the village, took a deep breath, and explained to the people how I doomed everyone. But to my surprise, they looked upon me with sympathy and warmth. With the understanding and support of the Islanders, I called Celeste once again, but she didn't appear, and the mist still covered the island. That's how I learned the truth. It wasn't only me who had crossed Celeste's fate with our own. The other culprit was the doctor who was traveling through our village, back when the pandemic first appeared. He was secretly conducting research to summon Celeste. We hurried to the place where he resided, but when we arrived, we found that his consciousness had already been swallowed by the primal beast of death, and he couldn't cough up any helpful information. Despite the setback, I joined with the crew and the Islanders to find and defeat Celeste. The mists parted, and the island returned to its former state. Its residents began to pass into the great beyond, disappearing into light. Before long, everyone I'd known had been lifted into the bright sky, leaving behind only their memories. I closed my eyes and waited for my final moments. But no matter how long I waited, I never began to fade. Left behind, yet again. I stared out at the village, devoid of residents. I was alone, but I could accept that. At any rate, the nameless ghost was no more, because a strange man gave me an oddly familiar name. So long as I had that name, and my memories with the crew, I could wait decades, maybe even centuries, for my sister to return. I think the captain, however, couldn't bear leaving me to such a hollow fate, and invited me to the crew. But how could I leave the island? I knew that my little sister would come back to me. Even though we were no more than graves and warm thoughts, this is where her family was laid to rest. If she came back and no one was waiting, wouldn't she be sad? That's why I knew I had to stay. But the captain wouldn't hear of it. If I was worried about my sister, I should go look for her. It was a new chance. I had never been off my island. I had never even considered the option. But I knew I could. I just needed to find the courage. And that's how I set out on a journey with the crew. Somewhere, out there in that big blue sky, my sister is waiting for me.